So the first question, you had a nice triangle, right? What's the first thing you should do if you're attempting questions like this? Oh, I should uncover it, yeah. What should you do first? Label things, right? So it tells you a few things. This is 15 degrees, right? It tells you what else? 80 degrees right here, right? That's 50 degrees, yep. Oh, and it tells you that, let's call this, who's that, Max or Michael? This is Max. And we'll call this point P. Let's call that point T. Let's call that point M, and let's call this point K. So it tells you what else? That the distance from K to T is 50. What else can you fill in? That's what it's given. What else can you fill in automatically? What? Angle what? Angle what? That is not specific enough.
Angle MPT.
There you go. Is what? 10 degrees, sure. What else do you know? Angle what? Nope. KMP. Oh yeah, you know KMP. KMP is what? 100 degrees. What else do you know? Angle PKM is what? Or PKT. Yeah, it's the same thing. That's fine. PKM is fine too. 65 degrees. So you know this is 65 degrees. So fill in what you know. Sure. There you go. That's great. And this is 100. So the first question is asking you to find what? The height. So you're trying to find PT. So there are many ways to do this. What's the easiest way that you came up with? Someone raised their hand and tell me what's the easiest method. What did you set up to use? Salmon.
I used tangent.
Yeah, tangent of what? 65 degrees is equal to what? Over. Yeah, so what did you get for PT? Someone else tell me, what did you get for PT? To 3 decimal places. Or as accurate as you have. Who has it super accurate? Yeah, Pang. 0.22. Go to at least 3 decimal places if you can. 0.225. Okay. Go to 3. I like 3 because that's what they have to do in the AP world. So we have PT, and then what are you supposed to find? Max's distance, so you're trying to find what? MT. What's the easiest way to find MT? Yeah, so tangent of 80 degrees is equal to PT over MT. Use the store function on your calculator, like store this as A. So that's just going to be A over MT. And it becomes a lot easier to figure out. Use that store function. Don't round. Does anybody have a really accurate answer for MT? For the distance? Who has something that's accurate? 31? It's 18 point something. 18 point what? 18.91. People agree with that? Yeah, it should be about 18.91. That's right. So next, though, you're supposed to, what happens when they move 10 feet back, right? What happens when they move 10 feet back? So when they move 10 feet back, angle PKT, what does that become? What does PKT become? The 65, what does it turn into? Does it go up or down? Anybody have it? Yeah. What is it, Brown? 60.77, that sounds right. And then what is angle PMT? Anybody have that? Someone new. PMT. How many people agree with those two numbers? Yeah, that's good. Very good. Try to go to 3 decimal places from now on. Try. That would be helpful. Okay, so now you have a boat question, right? Do you like the boat question? No, I don't like the boat question. Boats are silly. So they tell you that's 20 degrees, and this is 600. Let's call this S, let's call that B, and let's call this T. What else do they tell you? Not directly, but they tell you something else. Yeah, they tell you it's 150 because it's 10 hours at 15 knots. It's a nautical mile. So what do they ask you for first in this question? What do you have to find first? The angle you have to turn. So you're looking for this angle right there. You're turning a certain number of degrees counterclockwise. How do you go about finding that? What angle do you need to figure out in order to get that angle? STB. If you can get STB, you know what, let's call this, I don't know, N right here. You can find NTB. Because they're going to be, what is that, supplementary or complementary? Supplementary? Yeah. What do you have? You have a triangle here. What do you have in that? What is known? What's the simplified? What do you know? What values do you know about triangle BTS? You know what? A side, an angle, and a Side. You have side, angle, side. You have side, angle, side. What law are you going to need to use? First, what law are you going to use first? Law of cosines. Why can't you use law of sines right here? Why can't you use law of sines right here? You only have one angle. Well, actually, you don't have an opposite side. Both of your sides, do you have the opposite angles for these two sides? No, you don't. Do you have the opposite side for this angle? No, so you don't have a ratio. So what are you going to have to use? You're going to have to use law of cosines. And what is the law of cosines going to tell you? What are you going to solve for using the law of cosines? I know you guys answered this question. I heard you guys answering this question, so somebody jump in here. You're going to use the law of cosines to solve for which side or which angle? No one got this? Not a single person? What? There is no C up there. Use the letters that are up there. BT, exactly. You know that BT squared is going to equal what? Can someone tell me what BT squared is going to equal? Well, it's BS squared plus TS squared minus 2 BS TS cosine of 20 degrees. Do we know BS and TS? So what do you get? You have BT squared is equal to 600 squared plus 50 squared minus 2 times 600 times 150 times cosine of 20 degrees. That's great. So let's do that on our calculator. We definitely punched everything into the calculator correctly. What's one thing we could have done wrong, though? What do we have to check first? I'd imagine some of you made this error. Some of you probably typed this exact thing into your calculator, but you got a different answer. Yeah. Degrees. Make sure you're in. If you're using 20 degrees, make sure you're in. In this case, if you use radians, you end up with like 555. And is that a totally crazy answer? Not really. You might actually think 555, if you don't think about it for a little while, is wrong. But then when you actually try to do out the next ones, it doesn't really make sense. Usually when you don't convert from radians to degrees or vice versa, what happens to the answer? It's negative or gets really weird, right? You get a distance of like 0.2, and you're like, that can't be right. But in this case, it's not totally unrealistic, so you just have to be careful. Just be careful. So in this case, we now know it's 461.904. But that's not what we wanted yet, right? We still want that angle measure. So how do we go about finding that out? Now what can we use? Now that we have that side length, what can we now use? Law of sine. So now we know that sine of 20 over 461.904. And what I'm going to do before we use this, I'm going to store this as alpha A is equal to what? The sine of that sine of 20 over that is equal to what? Sine of what? Angle, which angle? BTS. Sine of angle BTS over what? 600. So you know that sine of angle BTS is equal to 600 sine 20 all over 904. So what do we have to do? We have to do sine inverse of that, right? So angle BTS is equal to sine inverse of this. If you do this out on your calculator, let's see what we get. What type of angle is BTS? It's an obtuse. So if it's an obtuse angle, what do you have to do? Subtract it from 180. It also should make logical sense. I mean, this one's clear because it's obviously an obtuse angle. Is it always that clear? No, just be careful. It's an obtuse, you're going to have to subtract it. So the actual answer is 180. The angle measure we were looking for is this, but why were we trying to find that angle measure? So we could find BTN, but did we already find it? So the angle BTN is actually what? 26.377 degrees. So turn counter clockwise. Okay, so that's the first part of the question. What's the second part of the question ask? How long? So what does the first leg take? What's the distance of the second one? 460. I saved it as A, right? What do we divide that by? 15, because that's how fast you're traveling per. So I already have it saved, so it's 10 plus alpha A divided by 15. Is storing values as letters, is that helpful? Yeah. So what do we get here? It takes a total of 40.79 hours. Now hold on one sec. How long would the trip normally take? Well, how long was it straight line? 600 divided by 15 is 40. So it takes an extra, how long? 0.793 hours.